Good day. Welcome to another lesson on our Super Dealmaker program. Today we'll be talking about stakeholder management. The question is, who are the stakeholders and why is it important for a business to manage its stakeholders? Okay, stakeholders, it depends on the type of business that you're running, but stakeholders are mainly, the first stakeholder, it will be the shareholders, people who own shares in your business, right? And then, okay, before we even go into the type of stakeholders means people who have interest in your business. The survival or the success of the business affects them. So they will have a vested interest on how is your business doing. So that they might have different interests because you have different type of stakeholders within the organization, people who have different interests. So you have employees who their interest is to make sure that they earn their salary. That's their main interest. And for them to continue earning their salary, it means the business must survive. Then you get other stakeholders, maybe the external stakeholders, who you are operating within the community. Maybe you are doing enterprise development and such activities that will help to contribute towards the well-being of the community. So stakeholders, there are different people or organizations that have interest in your business. Now that we know what it meant by the word stakeholders or stakeholder, so I'll go into a list of types of stakeholders that a business can have and why is it important for a business to manage the stakeholders. Okay, now I'll start with maybe the main, not the main necessarily, but the generic stakeholders, because different industries and different business will have different stakeholders. But as you're a business and you have shareholders, those are the first most important stakeholders that you need to make sure that you manage, because shareholders are people who are owning shares in your business. If you are a single shareholder company, then you'll not have shareholders as stakeholder because you are the shareholder. So in terms of shareholders are mainly for businesses that have shareholders, more especially those who are not operationally involved. So you have the shareholders and you have the directors. Remember, these two they're not always different, but they could be different. You find that somebody only has shares in the business, but it's not a director in that business. So it's not operationally involved. So as a business, you need to manage such individuals or such companies, because we have that thing of your agency agreement, because you are running the business on behalf of the shareholders. So you might also be a shareholder, but if you have other shareholders who are not directors or who are not operationally involved, that means you have the agency agreement between you as a director and the shareholders. So as a business manager director, you need to make sure that the interest of your shareholders are taken care of. Your shareholders, you have the same understanding in terms of expectations, because shareholders expect certain performance and certain returns from the investments that they made in the business. So you need to make sure that you manage that relationship closely, understand what is expected in terms of the achievement, the strategic objectives of the shareholders versus your interest, because sometimes your interest as a director, it might be different from the interest of the shareholders. So that's the first stakeholder that we look at. And then the second key stakeholder is your employees. If you are not a one-man show, employees are the most, okay, not most, but they are very important stakeholders within the business. Why? Because the business to perform, it needs to perform through employees. And if employees are not, their interests are not looked after, then you might have challenges in terms of motivational challenges, contribution. They might not contribute the way they can, or to their potential or to their ability. They might come just to do what they need to do and go home and then get paid month end or whenever you're paying them. So if you don't manage that relationship between the company and the employees, then that can cause problems, because if they get demotivated and they can start sabotaging the business and stealing and not giving the customer the best service, giving customers attitude and all that. So it's very, very important for as the business owner, entrepreneurs, to manage the employees as stakeholders. Look at them as the very important stakeholder in your business. They will contribute to the success of your business. So if you don't look after them, then you might find yourself in trouble with customer service. You might find that you are not able to deliver on your promise because you are not managing your employees the way you're supposed to be managing them. Then the question is, how do you manage employees? One thing, you need to have systems and procedures in place, internal systems and procedures in place. And when we looked at the skills plan development, that program, we touched on certain controls, certain systems that you need to put in place to manage your employees. One of them is the code of conduct. Make sure that you develop a code of conduct in terms of what is expected, how the employee is supposed to behave within the organization. And in the code of conduct, then you need to have the disciplinary procedures and processes in place to make sure that employees who are not meeting the code of conduct, or they are not behaving the way they're supposed to behave, then there is established disciplinary procedures and processes that the organization will follow. Then those are the two. And then the third one is more on the performance management. You need to be able to manage the performance of your employees. Obviously, in terms of performance management, you must be able to set targets, set objectives, bonus system or bonus scheme if you have. And if you don't have, it's encouraged so that you are able to give your employees more like stretch targets, to say, if you achieve this and this, then this is how much you're going to get, this is how you're going to be rated, and you're going to get the bonus come financial year end. Remember, the disciplinary processes and systems are the stick. They should know that there is a certain way that they need to behave. Otherwise, they can find themselves on the street. Then on the performance management side, then it's a carrot, where if they perform and they comply with the systems and procedures, you should reward your employees. You should be able to give them bonuses, promotions, and all that. So if you're giving somebody a bonus or a promotion, it must be based on the performance. And then the performance, you don't just set the targets. You need to do the performance reviews regularly, where maybe quarterly or twice a year is still acceptable. But if you do it regularly, it's actually better, because you are able to monitor and you are able to support different employees to see if they're in line to meet their targets. So those are the employees are the second most important. Okay, not necessarily in the order of importance, because different businesses have different structures, they have different requirements. So it might not be employees, because you might be a one-man show, so you don't have employees. But it doesn't mean you mustn't set the systems. Set the system even before you get your first employee, so that when you hire the first employee, then you'll know that there are systems in place already that they need to comply with. There are systems in terms of code of conduct. There are disciplinary processes or systems that are in place. There are performance management that are in place. And then the performance management must obviously guide the employees that you promote, the employees that you give salary increases, the employees that you give bonuses. It must be derived from the performance management system that you have developed. Shouldn't be a thumbs-up come here and just giving people salary increases or bonuses. The bonuses must be something that is being on the performance plans. You develop performance plans at the beginning of the financial year. Then you regularly monitor those performances, and come financial year end, then that's when maybe the bonuses are paid, but they must be paid based on one performance, and obviously you need to take the performance of the business into consideration if you are determining the bonus scheme. And even if sometimes businesses, they don't set the bonus scheme, so they just pay bonuses as and when. That now it becomes tricky because it makes it difficult for you to manage the employees as stakeholders, because sometimes you need to motivate them to say, if you achieve this and this and this, these are your targets for a year. If you achieve this is how much you're gonna get, or this is the percentage of the profits or of your salary that you're gonna get, provided that you meet the targets. So that during the year there are targets that they are working towards, so that not come year end, then you're having challenges in terms of they have certain expectations, and then you had different expectations, and these expectations were not aligned because you're not communicating, you didn't conduct your performance reviews regularly, and that will lead to demotivation of your employees. And once the employees are demotivated, then you get a challenge of performance, because you're going to have performance issues, you're going to have customer issues, you're going to have issues with theft and all. I'm not saying this is not the ultimate control, but also it's a contributing factor to say you're not managing your employees the way you're supposed to be managing them, and that leads to them feeling that they're entitled to steal because you're not paying them enough. And one other thing is, in terms of the salary rate and increases, it must be aligned. You mustn't discriminate against other employees. You pay other employees higher amounts while you're paying other employees a lower amount, even though they're performing better than the other. So your salary scale or your salary levels must be based on performance. If the employee perform, pay them accordingly, so that you keep on motivating them. You keep on making them want to come to work, making sure that they keep on striving to achieve the targets of your business. Because without putting a proper management system in place for your employees, you don't have code of conduct, you don't have disciplinary processes and procedures, you don't have a performance management plan in place for each employee, then that can cause confusion within the organization, and it can demotivate the employee, and you don't want a demotivated employee within your organization, because that will impact your bottom line, your profit, and will also impact your customer experience. Because remember, the employees are the face of the business. If they are not happy or they are demotivated, then they will be negative towards clients, towards service delivery, towards the quality and all that, and that can impact your business negatively. Okay, just remember, we're still on stakeholder management, and we spoke about the shareholders as the key stakeholder, the first key, because they own the business, and we spoke about the employees as the second key stakeholder, because that you are delivering through the employees. And the third one, it will be your suppliers. Okay, so in terms of suppliers, it could be your landlord, it could be the people that are supplying you with, if you are a manufacturing business, supplying you with raw material, or the people that are supplying you with stationery, or whatever the type of business that you are in. You have people who are supplying you with product and services who are not your employees. Sometimes certain businesses have contractors who are not employed by the company, but they're outside the company. You have your consultants, you have your lawyers, you have your accountants. Those are your suppliers. Those are your third type of stakeholder that you need to make sure that you manage. Okay, so, and then how do you manage your suppliers? Okay, the first and most important thing is to have a service level agreement in place. Okay, I know sometimes when you're dealing with the suppliers, we just buy and whatever, and you don't enter into any service level agreement. And as well, different businesses operate differently. So you might find that for other businesses, managing suppliers is not possible to have a service level agreement with them. So even if it's not a written service level agreement, because sometimes if you are a small company, you approach a massive company that you buy from, or they supply you with products, you say you want to enter into a service level agreement, they'll tell you to hike because they have power. And if it's not possible for you to enter into a service level agreement, then a written one, then you must have entered into what you call it a moral agreement, where you understand their service level. What type of service will they be able to provide you? When, by when, and the pricing and their delivery processes and all that, so that you understand your suppliers. So that if things are not going the way they're supposed to go, then you know that this is the moral agreement or signed service agreement that we have. Then you need to be, it will allow you to hold them accountable, because without service level agreement, then you are not able to hold your service providers accountable. And I've said that yes, not all service providers, you won't be able to get service level agreements from all your suppliers. But for the suppliers that you have a control over, like your accountant, like your lawyers, like your contractors, those you need to make sure that you have a service level agreement with them, even if it's maybe your printing services and all those things, so that you know that you and the supplier know what is expected from both sides, so that relationship, you can build a long-term relationship with them. Because if you don't have an agreement with them, sometimes you're going to expect certain things and then they don't deliver, or they deliver and you are not happy with certain things, and there is no agreement that is governing the relationship. So that can lead to conflicts, and you might end up losing maybe a good supplier because you didn't have a service level agreement and they didn't supply you on time, and maybe you disappointed your customers because this supplier didn't supply you with whatever product that they were supposed to supply, and you don't have a document to hold them accountable, and you went and made promises to your clients to say you're going to deliver on such and such a date, and then this person, they don't deliver, but you signed by telling your client that you're going to deliver a certain product or certain service at this particular time, date, place. Then you made a commitment to your client, but there is no commitment from your supplier. So if your supplier doesn't supply you on time, then that will negatively impact your relationship with your customer. You will not be able to deliver on time. So sometimes you can operate without having a formal service level agreement with your suppliers. But that's not ideal. That's not effective. That's not efficient way of running your business. And as you might have picked up from all these sessions, we emphasize on having systems in place, because we don't want you to be in your business. You must be on your business. You must be managing your business. You must be giving directions. But if you don't put those controls in place, you might find that you have a relationship with the supplier, but your office, it doesn't have the similar relationship. And when the supplier doesn't deliver, they don't have the power to tell them off, to tell them that they need to deliver, because there is no service level agreement. But if there is a service level agreement, it doesn't matter the person within your organization, it doesn't matter their position. Can phone your client, your supplier, to say, based on the service level agreement, you're supposed to deliver on this, but you didn't deliver. What is the problem? That shouldn't happen. These are the penalties, or these are the consequences of you not delivering based on the service level agreement. That will go a very, very long way for for your business to grow, because it makes it easier for you to manage the relationship, that stakeholder relationship with your suppliers. And it manages the conflict. It reduces, there will always be conflicts when you are in business, of course, but that reduces by you having a service level agreement with your suppliers, or contracts for that matter. Then that, it helps you to cover the relationship between your suppliers and the organization, and it will allow you to maintain that relationship. So it's very, very important for all your key suppliers. You need to make sure that you use a service level agreement to govern the relationship. And of course, different businesses will have different suppliers. So as a business, or as a director, or as a manager of a business, you need to identify who are your key stakeholders when it comes to the suppliers. Which stakeholders, from these stakeholders that you have identified, which ones are more important that you need to have a service level agreement to make sure that they don't negatively impact your operations or your delivery to your customers. For those suppliers that have an impact, a serious impact on your business strategy, make sure that you have an understanding with them in terms of the relationship. You have if it's not formal, but have some kind of understanding between you and that particular supplier, so that you, in future, it makes it easier for you to manage that relationship. But it gets difficult. Sometimes you are busy, they are busy, they're not delivering on time and all that. And once you complain, you might appear to be unreasonable, but only because you don't have the service level agreement with them. So the terms of delivery, or the terms and conditions of their service, is not clear to you or to them. Yes, and it is a challenge, because I've seen many SMMEs, they have casual relationship with their accountants, casual relationship with their other professionals like your lawyers and stuff like that. You look for financials, they don't have their financials ready. It's only when they phone, when you maybe there is an opportunity, you're trying to assist them to access the opportunity. That's when they start running around looking for the financials from their accountant. But if they had a service level agreement upfront with the accountant, I'm just using the accountant as an example, then they will be able to hold the accountant accountable to say, look, based on our service level agreement or memorandum of understanding or contract, whatever that the document that you are using to manage your suppliers, you're supposed to provide us with management accounts every quarter by the 15th. Why are you not doing that? You are in breach of the service level agreement, and these are the consequences. So that will make it very easy for you to manage your suppliers. And maybe as well with the landlord. Yes, I mean landlord, but most of the time you enter into a lease agreement. But there are conditions in that lease agreement. Make sure that you comply with that to make sure that the relationship stays healthy between you and the landlord, because sometimes the landlord becomes your very, very important key stakeholder, because he might not renew your lease when your lease expires if you are not managing that relationship. Or you might do something that it's a breach of the lease agreement. Then you might be kicked out of the building if you are renting it. So those are the type of things that you need to make sure that you formally develop your stakeholder management plan, in terms of how you're going to manage your stakeholders, who you identify your key stakeholders. Now we've touched on the shareholders, we touched on the employees, we touched on the suppliers, including your contractors, your day-to-day suppliers, your landlord. You need to make sure that you know your stakeholders, most especially your suppliers, and you manage that relationship accordingly. If you have to give them gifts once in a while, so be it. But that's not a must. It's just that different companies might use different approaches when they are managing their stakeholders, most especially the suppliers. Don't take them for granted. Make sure that you manage that relationship so that you'll be able to deliver to your customer on time. The quality that you deliver on time, one, deliver the quality that your customers are expecting. That you normally do it by making sure that you manage your relationship with your suppliers. That is our third stakeholder that you need to make sure that you manage. And now we're going into our fourth stakeholder. Our fourth stakeholder is your compliance side of things, like your government, your SARS, if you have to be accredited, your accredited institution, your labor department, and all that. So the fourth group is on the compliance side. Okay, and as I usually say, it depends on the type of business that you're running, right? So, and on the compliance side, okay, the key ones, the generic ones, are your SARS, and the departments that you might have to register with. It's your Department of Labor, and then those are the key ones. And if you need accreditations and all that, the institution that is accredited you, or sometimes you find that you are a franchisee, the franchisor becomes in that compliant group of stakeholders. And those are the ones who actually have power over you, if I can call it that, because you reliant on them to approve you. You reliant on them to support you. You reliant on them to give you certain certificates. So what you need to do as the business is to make sure that you comply. Okay, that's the first thing. To make sure that relationship works well, you need to make sure that you comply. Meaning, if it's a license, you need to make sure that you put all the licenses have conditions. So you need to make sure that you comply with all the conditions of the licenses. And in addition to complying, make sure that you build that relationship. You have a person that if you have issues, you can contact. And do that regularly in terms of contacting them, catching up with them, understanding what is new in their space or what is expected going forward, so that as a business, you can know what is coming on the compliance side. You need to make sure that if you need health and safety, you need to make sure that you continuously communicate with your the reps that do the inspection to understand, are there any changes? I'm incompliant. I need to do the renewal. When can I do the renewal? If it's an accreditation, make sure that you do the things that they want, that you perform the things the way they want you to perform. If it's a franchisee, make sure you pay all your franchisee or franchise the royalties and all those things, and you meet their performance standards. If it's a license, there are certain conditions that you need to make sure that you comply with. If it's SABS, there are processes that you need to make sure that you follow when you're producing your product. Make sure that you comply with the stakeholders. And if it's SARS, make sure that you submit your tax returns on time. Your tax returns are accurate. And most importantly, you keep the record. Not only for SARS, but even for franchisees, even for licenses, if there are certain things that are happening, when they come doing the monitoring, they want to see the records. Even if you are compliant, but you're not keeping proper records, that might work against you, because when that stakeholder comes to look at the operation, you might find that you don't have proper records for you. That means you won't be able to prove that you are doing the things the way you're supposed to do them. And if there are certain days that you need to file the documents, don't do them late. Make sure that you file them when you're supposed to file them, which is very, very important to make sure that you're managing that relationship, because they have the power to take the license from you. They have the power to take the franchise agreement from you. Okay, they can obviously abuse, but if you break the conditions of the agreement, they can't do that. And you might find that you invested a lot of money in that business and you're failing to maintain the license. And let's say if you are training, you're providing accredited trainings, now you can't provide the trainings. Then you're going to go under because you fail to manage those relations. If it's a mining license and you don't pay in time, you don't give them the reports that they are looking for, you don't apply to renew on time, your operations can stop because you don't have the license to continue. And the main thing is it will be because you are not managing those stakeholders. Build a good relationship, understand what they are looking for, continuously communicate with them. If you are facing challenges, make sure that you communicate with them, you tell them your challenges. And remember, I had the suppliers this side, and then here, these ones are more on the regulation side to say, please make sure that you build that relationship with them. Make sure that you are compliant. Make sure that you have a contact person to understand the new things that are coming, what activities are they doing, when are they coming for inspection and all that, so that you can prepare. So building the relationship with compliant and legislative stakeholders is also very, very important, because some businesses can operate without a license. Some businesses can operate without the franchise renewal of the franchise agreement, and SARS can liquidate you if you're not submitting your documents on time, you're not submitting the accurate things that they are looking for. So those stakeholders as well, they are very, very important. I call them government and legislative stakeholders. Make sure you identify them, you know which stakeholders, and even with the labor department or Department of Labor, you need to make sure that you do your UIF, because if the employee get dismissed, or you dismiss an employee but they are not compliant with your UIF, that might get you in trouble. If you are more manufacturing and you need to do workplace compliance, you need to make sure that your workplace is in compliant, and you pay that quota fee, so that if somebody get injured in the work environment, then quota will be able to cover them. Because if you don't have the quota, if somebody gets injured in the workplace, then you will be liable as the business to pay that person. But if your quota stuff is in order, then quota will pay. And then on the SARS side, if you are not managing that relationship properly by doing things accordingly, there are certain projects that require your CSD, tax clearance. Then you might find that you're submitting your documents, but you're not tax compliant. And maybe the customer asks you to say, sort out your tax compliant issues. But on the other side, you don't have a service level agreement with your accountant. When you ask them, you are hoping that they can do it as agent as you want it. But if you don't have a service level agreement with your accountant, then this side, the compliance stakeholder, might want a document, and then you go to the supplier of your document, which now in this case might be your lawyer or your accountant. Then they take their own time, you might lose that opportunity. So if you have a stakeholder, make sure you understand the relationship. Make sure that you know what is expected from you, from those legislative and government stakeholders. They are very, very important. Sometimes we tend to ignore them. Sometimes because we don't see them day to day. We only realize that we didn't renew our license after the license has expired. Remember, if you need a license to operate, let's say government needs to give you a license to operate, and then you are operating without that license. Let's say it's food safety or whatever, or it's an approval for you to operate certain, maybe it's a license for selling liquor or whatever. So if you continue to operate without renewing the license, you must know that you're operating illegally. And as a director, you will be held personally liable for anything that happens on your premises. Because if you're not compliant, so they will declare that you are operating negligently. And as a director, you can be reliable for any losses that a person can suffer from as a result of your operations. Most especially if there is certain legislations that are there that you are not complying with. So you need to make sure that you comply with this legislation, you build this relationship, you build the system and the management processes to manage those stakeholders that you're supposed to comply with. Okay, so that was our fourth stakeholder, which I call government and legislative stakeholders. Make sure you maintain those relationships, and most importantly, make sure that you are compliant. Now we're going to the fifth stakeholder that you should manage properly. You must make sure that you manage them properly. These are your funders or your bankers. Even if you're not funded, it's funded from you funded the business from your own pocket, but you need to manage your banking relationship with whichever bank that you are banking with, not only for the business but also as also an individual. So build a relationship with your banker for the business and for yourself individually, because you never know when you might need that relationship. Banks are very, very important. Make sure that you understand their requirements. You make sure that you build a relationship with your banker so that when you need them, you will know what are they looking for. So once you know what they're looking for, then you will continuously strive to make sure that you are within their requirements, so that even if it happens for you to look for funding, then you will automatically qualify because you will be managing your business based on their requirements. So manage your relationship with your banker, manage your financial relationship, understand what are they looking for, how do they do the assessment when a business applies for funding, and what the things that they are looking for, the records that they will want should you require funding, so that if the time comes for you to look for funding, you will already know which documents you're supposed to give them. That's if you don't already have a facility with them. And for those banks that you have facilities with them, make sure you maintain the relationship. And the best way to maintain the relationship with the bank is to pay them when you're supposed to pay them. Even if where it's possible, pay them a little bit more, because that improves your credit rating with them. And should you be in trouble where you are not able to service the facility that you have, if you have built a good relationship with them, it will make it easier for you to go to them and tell them that I have these challenges. I've experienced 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm looking, here are my plans. I think I'll be able to recover in the next 3 or 4 months. Then they will be able to look at your facility. They can help you to, not all the time, but but most of the time, if you go to them beforehand, before they call you, you go to them to say, I foresee danger here and there. I'm experiencing this and these challenges. How can you help me? Sometimes they have support. They have a post-investment support that can help you maybe to navigate the challenges that you might be going through. Because what I've picked up over the years is that SMMEs, when they see that they are about to be in trouble, then they start running away from the funding institutions that funded them. And then it will get to the point where the funding institution starts looking for them, and you know that's where the trouble is. And then you start ducking and diving, which ultimately might lead to the funder, maybe liquidating the business or selling the assets or whatever, or taking a negative step. You don't want that. Believe me, financial institutions, they understand that business has got its own cycles. Sometimes you are in the tip, sometimes you're doing well. So when you're not doing well, communicate with the institution that funded you. Highlight the problems that you are experiencing. Ask them if they will be able to assist you to navigate those things. Sometimes, as I said, they can give you moratorium, or sometimes we find that they have a relief scheme in place. But because you are running away from them, you might not know, or you might not be exposed to the opportunities that exist that could eventually save your business. So, but this relationship I'm talking about, don't only build it or start communicating with the bank when you are in trouble. Even in the times that you are doing well, Speak to your financial institution. They can guide you in terms of how to invest your money, what can you do, how you can restructure your facilities and all those things. They can always give you free advice in terms of how you run your business. So keep your funding institutions close to you so that, one, they give you guidance how to run your business, how best you can manage your finances. Two, they will be able to assist you should you get in trouble. It's quality insurance of some kind. Should you get in trouble, you should approach them as soon as you can. As soon as you realize that you are getting in trouble, then you approach them to see if there's anything that can be done, anything that, any guidance that they can give you, any assistance that they can provide you. That's how you manage your funding or your banking stakeholders. You must have a bank, obviously, if you're running a business, and make sure that you build a good relationship with that institution that you are using to fund your business, or the ones that you think you might need as you expand or as you grow or when you restructure your business. Know the funding institution and manage that relationship. Identify who is the key person that you need to be communicating with. Keep in contact. Make sure that you keep them in the loop in terms of how the business is doing, the things that are going on in the business. And as I said, if you're in trouble, let them know as soon as you can. That was now on your funding and banking stakeholders. This is how you manage them, by being proactive with them, engaging with them, asking for advice, telling them as early as possible if you're experiencing challenges with your business. Okay, now we spoke about shareholders. I'm just summarizing in terms of the stakeholders that we have already looked at. We looked at shareholders as stakeholders. We looked at employees. We looked at suppliers. We looked at compliant or government stakeholders. And lastly, we looked at the financing or the funding or the banking stakeholders, how you manage those. Now we're going to the last one. It's not necessarily the last one. As I said, we're just looking at the generic stakeholders, but each business will have different stakeholders. So now we're looking at the community as stakeholders, because I know we're discussing this last, but community is your key stakeholders because you are operating within the community. So how do you manage community or communities if you are operating in different communities as stakeholders? Okay, one, it will depend on the type of operations that you're running. Large corporates like your mining companies, remember most of the time you find that they are mining on the community land. So community will have expectation from the mine in terms of job creation, development, economic development around the area, social development or contribution and such things. So there will be generally, call it 3 key expectations from the community, where they expect economic development, they expect social development, and they expect employment from the project. Yes, you might be a small or a spaza shop or whatever, smaller one-man show business. You're still operating within the community, and the community are the people who will make your business thrive. Because remember, if you have a good relationship with your community, they won't steal from you, they will support your business, and they will continuously be there for you to give it call it a friendlier environment to allow you to operate within that community. So building a relationship with the community is very, very, very important. It's critical for most businesses, because one, without the community, you might not have the business. Without community support, protection, you might not survive. It might be affected. There might be break-ins. There might be people stealing from you. There might be people not supporting your business. Now, talking about the small business. And then if you are bigger operations, and if you don't employ people from the community, or you don't do, you don't contribute to the community, we call it social development. If you don't economically improve the lives of the people or the community around your operation, that can also have a negative impact. They can strike, they can prevent you from going to work, they can sabotage your operations, they can make it difficult for your operation or for your business to thrive in that environment. So it's very, very, very important to manage the stakeholders. But on other side, you need to understand that you can't satisfy everyone within the community. So when you're dealing with community, within the community that you're operating in, you need to be able to identify the key players who you're going to engage with, the ones that have power within the community, or influence, not necessarily power. They can influence the community. Then you engage those individuals or those institutions so that you build the relationship with them. And when you're building the relationship with them, you need to understand what is, in terms of their benefits, what are they expecting from your organization? And then you look at your organization, what can it provide? And then you engage based on that to say, these are your expectations, this is what we are able to do. How do we meet each other halfway for us to have a good relationship? Because not obviously, but most of the time you wouldn't be able to meet all their demands. Then there must be an engagement process. After having that engagement process, you come to an understanding. Some they might not be happy with certain things, some might be happy with certain things, but you must do that engagement. Even though they are not fully agreeing to what you're putting on the table, but it makes a huge difference from the fact that you are engaging the community in terms of their needs. And if you're a small business, then you are even more within the community. Make sure that you attend the events, you support them where you can. I know you are running a business. You can't be necessarily a community activist, but you must be seen doing things for the community. That's very important. Doing them is one thing. Okay, but I mean, for you to have a peace of mind and comfort that you are making a difference, doing is important. But you must be seen to be doing certain things. Perception becomes very, very important. As I said, with the community, what you're actually doing, yes, it's important, but what is even more critical is what you are seen or you are perceived to be doing. Because you might be doing a lot, but if you don't have that public relation type with your community where they understand the things that you're doing, the impact and why you're doing them, they might perceive your community participation in a negative light, even though you're doing a lot for them. So you need to be able to manage them, be able to communicate with them, be able to present to them the things that you are doing, understand their expectation, make a difference where you can, because that goes a long, long way. Because without community engagement, you might struggle to get support from the community. And most of the time, if you are operating within a community, you need the community support. And it's not only that, even the BE legislation wants social contributions. You need to make social contribution. Make sure you hire a local first. If the skills is there, if they have skills, and make sure that if you're doing training, make sure that you involve the community there. You train the community, you empower them with training, empower their youth with work experience and all that. And where possible, you buy from the community to make sure that you uplift the community that you are operating with. Yes, it might be running a spaza shop, but there might be a guy maybe 2 blocks away selling archer. can give them the platform to put the archer in your store. If there's a chicken place, people maybe they are chicken broilers or they're growing chickens, then you might buy maybe their chickens and put them in your store. Just give them that opportunity. Just give them that push that you can. If you are operating within, if you are not that big, there's a difference that you can always make. And working with community goes a long way, as I said, that the community will support you, will protect you, will be there for you when you need them. Because you might think you don't need the community because you're doing your own thing. But a man is not an island. You can't operate on your own. Yes, you can, but to be more successful, to grow, because what you're looking at here is for businesses that can move from a certain level to the next. So stakeholder management will help you, especially managing your community, the community that you're operating within. It will help your business grow. You will help you get the support from the community and all that. Then that will translate into your economic returns, where now you're making a little bit more profit by simply being part of the community, by simply managing your business relationship with the community. And once you do that, there are certain things that you learn from the community. If you build a closer relationship, there might be certain services that you might provide, or the community is looking for, but you are not providing because you are engaging them. Then that might make a difference. It might increase your product offering to the community. So community engagement becomes very, very important. Build that relationship, and even you as the entrepreneur or business manager or an executive, you know that you are doing the best that you can for the community. Okay, maybe some people don't care, but I know most entrepreneurs care about the difference that they're making within their community. It's not only about the profit, it's about making a difference. It's about uplifting each other. It doesn't matter how small you are. Yes, if you're bigger, you are running a corporate, then your stakeholder engagement or stakeholder management becomes a little bit different. You can throw in some money within to the community, do projects, implement certain things. But if you are small, you can still play your role, where you contribute the little that you can. You hire local, if you provide local youth with work experience and so on and so on, or you put on certain products. If you are running a spaza shop, if you are doing different things, there are opportunities that you can give to the local, so that you also uplift the environment around you. So if as the people around you, as they grow, the will also lift your business will grow. So you are not an island. You need to make sure that you bring on board the community that you're operating within, and it must be a plan that you implement. It's not something that you do as in when. You must set targets of what stakeholders engagement you want to do. What do you want to achieve? What are the targets? What are the goals that you want to achieve? What is the budget that you allocate to this project? And then the supply chain of managing the community as well. You need to know. You can't just engage any other, because there will be many community leaders and all that. You must find the right channel. You must understand their supply chain to say, who should I speak with? Maybe if you are in rural communities, it might be your Hoshi there that you need to speak to. Or if you are in maybe a suburb, you might have your councillor that you can consult with in terms of community engagement. Know your stakeholders, know your supply chain. And that process must be controlled. You need to know when you are having the meetings, because you can spend a lot of time. It can derail you from what you want to achieve. Remember, ultimately you are running a business. You are not a community activist. So you need to make sure that you control those activities so that they don't get out of hand. They call you in all the meetings, you're doing all sorts of things that you're not supposed to be doing. It's important to have a proper project management plan for your stakeholders. But this is not only for the community, all the stakeholders that we spoke about. You need to know, you develop a plan, how you're going to execute it, and how you're going to close it. It must have those processes. And financially, sometimes community engagement or community stakeholder management, it's a costly exercise. You need to make sure that the cost and the budget are accounted for, they are recorded the way they're supposed to be recorded, so that you know how much you're spending on stakeholder management, because you might be spending a lot of money without you even noticing if you are not keeping records of your stakeholder management activities. You need to make sure that you manage those activities. And just remember, sometimes you might not have the skills to engage with the stakeholders. If it is necessary, find the necessary skills that they can help you on that specific project of stakeholder engagement. Not necessarily that they have to be full-time within the business, but you find the relevant skills that you need for you to be able to execute your stakeholder management plan. Make sure that the people are skilled, you understand the people that you need to be speaking to. In terms of that, make sure that you have a plan. It's a documented plan, and manage it. Put controls in place. Make sure that you know how much you're going to spend and where you're going to get the money to spend on this. Because you can't spend all your profit in stakeholder management. And make sure that you know the targeted. You must be able to give or send a good message out there, communicate a good message, so that you are seen to be part of the community, you are seen to be managing the community, because that's also what is important, to be seen doing something about community development or community engagement. That is our last section on stakeholder engagement, but we're going to break it down as we go into detail on this program. Then we're going to break it down even further in terms of how you identify your stakeholders, how you manage them, how you engage with them, and then how do you report to them, and how do you resolve, if there are any conflicts, how you resolve the conflicts with your stakeholders. So that's the introduction to stakeholder management. We're going to go into details later on in terms of breaking it down even more. Okay, thank you.